2008, you lost your family, your business, your home, and you put yourself into this position to sink or swim.
To cope with that, all I knew that brought me peace at the time was just ride my bicycle. Unintentionally, I was getting good at riding a bike, went online and bought a one-way ticket to San Francisco. That was the start of a 42-day journey of figuring myself out.
Everyone, welcome back. Here with Michael James, entrepreneur, athlete, and motivator. Michael, you had me on your show, The Michael James Way. It was a great conversation, and I figured I'd return the favor and return the friendship here because we had a great conversation. I wanted to bring it to Prestige Access. We think a lot alike in many ways, so I think having you here again with me will share another great conversation together. So thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, man. What a joy to be on. And it was such a great experience having you on my podcast and great conversation and looking forward to this conversation as well.
It's great to see you again. I know we haven't officially met in person, but we've done a few of these now, and it's always great talking to you, man. What Absolutely. Are you kind of working on day to day right now?
Yeah. So really putting a lot of effort into the podcast, sharing my story, really getting it out there. I'm writing a book right now as well. And the book is really about the story of my bike ride across the United States, as well as bringing that into how can a listener or a reader take an experience that I had and put it into their everyday life. Mm-hmm. So working on that. And then I've got my luxury home remodeling company that's going full blast. I'm not as involved with that. I've got it pretty much, on with all the team, running it, but it gives me the opportunity to put a lot of focus into the podcast.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on both of those, your entrepreneur journey with what you're doing right now in real estate. But we'll start with the bike journey all the way across the country, because that to me is something I don't think I'd be able to ever do. And I have to be honest about that. I mean, that's just a different type of skill and a different type of athleticism that I don't know if I possess. I can do a lot of cool things, but I don't think that's one of them. So props to you to be able to do that. Could you tell us a little bit about that journey? Just what made you want to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in my early 20s, I was invited to go out on a mountain bike ride with some friends, threw up while I was out there. I was trying to keep up with these guys. Threw up a couple of times. Oh, man. But I came back off of that little ride and I was like, man, I want to go buy me a bike. And, so I started getting involved in cycling, but I was involved more on just an amateur level. I was in my early 20s, I wasn't really in that mindset to get good at it. But in 2008, went through the crash in the economy, pretty much lost everything I had, and as well lost my marriage. And at the time I had two kids that were 5 and 3, and going through that was it was tough. And so to cope with that, all I knew that brought me peace at the time was just ride my bicycle. And I'd be dad when it was time to be dad, and when I didn't have my 2 kids, I would go out and I'd ride. And, in doing that, I just didn't feel like it was like my headspace was getting better. But what I unintentionally was doing was I was getting good at riding a bike, and I didn't realize I was. And I was racing some on the weekends and had a coach that said, Michael, why don't you go up to nationals and race nationals and just see how you do? So I go up to nationals and I race in the single speed division, and I finished 12th in the nation. And I was like, well, damn, I think I may be pretty good at this, Mm-hmm. But on my way home, it was in Madison, Wisconsin, and on my way home, I was like, I'm still a broken individual, from losing my family, getting a divorce, my business wasn't doing well, I had lost my home, my truck was foreclosed. I mean, all of these things had just compounded, and I knew I needed to make a shift. I knew I needed to make a change. And so I got home and I went online and bought a one-way ticket to San Francisco. And that ticket was like the no going back, like the burning the ships.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really thinking that, but that was like my accountability of, all right, I just bought this ticket. I guess I have no choice now but to ride my bike across the United States. And so I started training and spent 6 months training. And come that June, I got on that flight and with my bicycle and showed up in San Francisco, rode it over to the San Francisco Bay Area, to the San Francisco Bay Bridge. And as I'm looking at Alcatraz, I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
And that was the start of a 42-day journey of figuring myself out.
Wow, man. So 2008, you lost your family, your business, your home, your truck, and you put yourself into this position to sink or swim.
Yeah.
And along that journey, you developed use cycling as your anchor, right? And
Yeah.
then you started to develop the skill that said, hey, maybe even through all this turmoil over here, I could develop something here and be successful here. So you bought the ticket, you put yourself in that position. Is this something that you could gain monetarily from, or you were just doing this for yourself just to see if you could do it?
Yeah, it wasn't even about money to me. It was figuring out how I could get this thing between my two ears figured out.
Yeah.
And so actually I was broke. I had some bike shops that donated equipment, people that donated clothing.
Wow.
I had a bike company that donated a bike. Like everything just kind of came together where it just didn't cost me what it would normally cost just for any individual that would do it on their own. So yeah, it was definitely not monetary. It was day by day going, if I can do this, maybe I could figure me out.
So you voluntarily signed up to something that you didn't know you could do. By the way,
Yeah.
You had no idea that you could be successful in this 40 some odd day journey, but you took that risk to figure out, if I can do this, I can do these other things. Is that right? Or?
Pretty much, yeah. And, I don't even think that I took the time to even think that deep into it at first. But what it proved to me over time was, if I can do that, then there's nothing that I can't do.
Right.
And I had hired a coach prior to going on that trip, and she had done a cross-country bike ride 5 different times. And I was like, well, if she's done it 5 times, like,
wow.
Surely she could teach me a thing or two.
Right.
And so she did. And one thing that she told me early on, she goes, Michael, you're going to have about 5 times you're going to want to quit. And at the time when she told me that, I was like, nah, she doesn't know me. I'm not a quitter. Like, I just don't quit. But Zach, I mean, she was dead on. And I literally went that whole trip, and there was 5 times I wanted to quit. 5 specific moments where I wanted to quit. And the first one came on day 3.
I'm sure.
When all the hype was over, the excitement of what I'm doing and the excitement of text of coming across from family and friends of, you're so awesome, And on that third day I was camping throughout the whole trip, and I wake up in my tent, and the dew from the condensation in the tent dripping on my face, and I was like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, that was the first moment of like, this is a big undertaking. And I question like what I really was this going to be something I was going to endure?
We talked about this on your show. That first thought of quitting comes so early because you're right. You get all the hype, you get the pep talks, you get everyone, yeah, cheering you on, and that's in the beginning. And that's when you don't really need it.
Yeah.
And then it happens again towards the end when you're coming up to the finish line. Yeah, you always could do it. We always believed in you, but there's the middle.
Yeah.
That sucks. And that middle, especially for you on this journey, is literally just you.
Yeah.
If you could, from the first point of you wanting to quit, walk us through the next series of you wanting to quit and try to bring yourself back to that mindset and what made you keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my next point was about day 10, and I got up early, and I had to get up early just to beat the heat. This was June, July time, so going across Nevada, and I was hitting days that was 115 degrees.
Wow. So what was the track? San Francisco, what was the track?
Yeah, almost if you were to just draw a straight line from San Francisco all the way to the coast of North Carolina and going through California into Nevada, into the Colorados, across Kansas, and then dipping down into Tennessee or Missouri, Tennessee, and the Carolina. But Nevada was brutal. You know, the deserts, the long straight roads, the 100+ degree temperature. And I had gotten up that morning pretty early, about 3 o'clock in the morning, to just try to do what I could to beat the heat. And by 10 o'clock in the morning or so, I had already ridden 50 miles, which was a good feat just within itself.
Yeah, wow.
But the next town was like, it was another 50 miles. And I had to make a decision, like, do I stay where I'm at or do I push on through? And, you know, I pushed on through. It's like, oh, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I got plenty of daylight in front of me. You know, I feel good.
Well, because it's not like you can just shack up on the side of the road in the middle of the desert, right?
Right. Absolutely. So, and there was this like, I pulled over at this little diner, you know, and got some breakfast. So it wasn't a very luxurious, you know, stop. But I pushed on through, and little by little, I mean, the day just started just eating away at me. And I climbed this mountain, and I knew that I was not going to make it to the next town. Like, there was just no way, unless I just rode through in the night. And I really just didn't want to do that. I just sitting down this mountain into this valley. I get a flat tire. And by the way, flat tires, I had a total of 32 flat tires the whole trip.
How do you even manage that? What do you do?
You remember as kids, you'd have those little patch kits?
Yeah.
That's what I carried with me. I did carry a couple extra tubes, but the patch kits were golden. You know, it would find out where the hole was, patch it, put it back on. Wow. But yeah, 32 flat tires. But I was in this valley. I got a flat tire. I was throwing a little temper tantrum, you know, like frustrated that the flat tire happened and all of this. But in this valley, I looked off in the distance, and probably about 5 miles out, I could see some greenery. So you're in the desert, you see greenery, you're like, okay, there's got to be water there. I was running out of water. So I make it to this little area, and it was a farm and a little farmhouse there. And I go up to this lady's door. I knock on the door and I ask for water, and I ask if I could set up my tent in her front yard. And she did. She was super sweet, just really excited for some random guy to just come through. And so I did. I set up camp, and ironically, that I set up my tent, I start cooking my food, and I set my tent on fire.
Wow.
And it was just like this combination of all these things, you know. And I knew then, I was like, you know, I put the fire out, but I was like, I got to take a break. And that next morning, I woke up to a generator of them cranking up for the farm, and I took off and I rode another 20 or so miles to this small little town and checked into a hotel. And that was the first time I'd checked in a hotel, and that was day 10. And I just took a day and a half, and I didn't get out of bed but to go and get something to eat, you know? And what I learned with that, Zach, was, you know, looking back at it now, it's okay to take breaks. That doesn't mean you're giving up,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And sometimes you just have to recognize your body and go, you know what? I'm on the verge of burnout. I'm on the verge of a breakdown. I'm on the verge of whatever that is. I need to take care of me. And just because you take care of you doesn't mean that the trip is done, that you're giving up on your goals, that you've forsaken it. But that's what I did. I took a little break, and a day and a half later, got back on the bike and kept pedaling.
What was it for you at day 10? Was it more mental than physical? Was it both?
Yeah, it was more mental than anything. You know, when there's a monotony to something, you know, and in my case, it was just, I'm in the desert, 2-lane road. I could see cars on the furthest distance I could see. Cars were like little dots, you know. It was just very mind torture.
Was there any time that you doubted yourself? Like, you know what, talking to yourself, like, you know what, maybe I made a mistake doing this?
You know, there were times where I didn't doubt that I would make it, but I had to constantly keep a positive mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times where I allowed my mind to go off on a little tangent of justifying a good reason to quit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I never wanted, you know, we talked about in the podcast you and I had before, the story that you tell yourself on your way home.
Yeah.
You know, and I knew I didn't want that story. I knew I didn't want that conversation. If I gave up, that conversation with myself would be brutal. But I did look for a little excuse. Like, if this happened, then I could justify to all of my followers why I had to quit. And for example, there was a time in Colorado, I was run off the road by a car, and I hit an embankment. It knocks me out. I fall down this ravine.
Jesus.
And I'm laying face up in this creek. I had 2 rocks on each side of my head. I don't know how I managed landing where I landed. Firefighters were coming down to rescue me. But fortunately, I had a couple broken ribs, and so nothing major. My bike was in bad shape. But this firefighter was like, you know what? I'll help you out, because I didn't want to go to the hospital. I was a little belligerent. He took me to the bike shop. He helped me get my bike fixed, and he offered a steak dinner if I would stay at his house that night.
Really?
And I was like, you're on. You know?
Where was this? Was it, you say Colorado?
Yeah, in Telluride.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it was this descend down into Telluride that I was run off the road. And so he cooked me a steak dinner on the grill that night. And that next morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, I set off. But I set off from a statement that my brother made to me. And he goes, Michael, for every day you don't get back on the bike, it's going to be one day harder to get back on the bike.
Right.
And so I just didn't let that get in the way. But I had that conversation of, this would be the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, I got hit by a car, guys.
I got hit by a car. I got run off the road. Everybody would understand,
right,
and give me grace to giving up on a goal. And I had to shut that up really quick.
Why?
Because I knew my truth.
That's right. Because you would know.
Yep. Yeah. And I could hide from everybody else, but there's nobody, I can't hide from me. And again, back to what we said earlier, that conversation, like you can't avoid that conversation. And especially if you are not deceitful, but if you're using something as an excuse, you're using it as an excuse.
Yeah.
And
some people
that's what it was.
That, but you're not, I'm not, other people aren't. And we were talking about this, Michael, and I want your thoughts again. Is that something you can learn? Or are you born with that unable to quit mentality? Because you hear a lot of guys say, no, you're born this way. It's something you can't learn. I don't know if that's true. I think perhaps you can learn it, but it's a very, very, very difficult path.
Yeah, I do think it's a difficult path, but I think it can be learned as well. And I think the way to learn it is to do it. Mm-hmm. And you got to start off with something small. Mm-hmm. And you build that muscle to be able to push through. Yeah, if you were to go out probably right now, heck, even if I were to go out, I'm not even in the shape I was then. With the intention of riding my bicycle across the United States right now, I would probably throw in the towel. I just am not physically in that shape. But if I go out and I did a 20-mile ride right now, it would hurt, it would sting, but I could do it. And then building up over time. And so I believe that's the thing is if anybody is wanting to create that muscle, you've got to go out and build it and be okay if you fail. Learn from the failure, learn from where it didn't work, and then go out and do it again.
Confidence comes from competence. It's one of my favorite sayings. You don't wake up with all this self-confidence to be able to do whatever you want. It comes from you being able to trust yourself, even small at first. Like, hey, I can do this. I've committed to this goal of going in the gym 3 days a week. And then that turns to 5. Yeah. And then that turns to consistent nutrition. So it's incremental truths that you keep and promises with yourself that you keep that builds confidence so that one day maybe, hey, I can do a 40-mile ride because I know I've done 15 or a 40-day ride because I know I've done 15.
Right.
Maybe I could do 25 next.
Yeah, totally. I'm taking some golfing lessons now. I really want to learn how to play golf. I want to get good at it. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking the other day, very similar to what you and I just talking about right now, if that coach would have just loaded me with all the things I needed to learn on day one,
right,
I would have been in overwhelm. Mm-hmm. I just could not have been able to retain it. But he started on a foundation, and he started building on that. And then he gave me a week, like, I want you to go and practice that foundation. And then I come back, and then he tweaks this, and I go back for another week, and I practice that. And over time, I'm seeing that I'm getting better at golf. Mm-hmm. And so in this same way, I do think it's a learned thing that over time builds confidence. And I do believe you can accomplish things that it may not be to the norm, or it may be something where a high level athlete, it comes more natural. But I believe someone who's not that athlete, not that competent in a certain skill, they could train to do it. I really believe that.
In wrestling, you learn the moves first. We call it the basics. You learn how to run the ropes, you learn how to do the jumps and the falls, and then you have to put it all together, make it make sense. And then there's nuances to that, because how you do something, if I taught you, Michael, right now how to wrestle, I could do that. You've never done it before, but I could teach you how to do it.
Right.
And then in 6 months, you can have a match. Now, is your match going to be one of my matches, or is my match going to be a match like Ric Flair in his prime? No. So wrestling is a very slow build, and you learn it young, because you'll be around these vets that go, I've been doing it 3 years, and they're like, yeah, kid, around year 7, 8, 9, you'll really start to learn what this is about. You're like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Year 8, 9?
Yeah.
So it kind of puts your expectations that, hey, you don't have it all figured out right now, and you won't probably ever, because these guys tell you, I never stop learning how to do different nuances to different things. And it's much like golf. It's like any athletic venture. And then it's like business, right? You kind of never stop learning.
Yeah, totally. I had a coach that told me when I was racing and I was doing really good at it, he goes, Michael, you got to learn how to win. And when he first told me that, I didn't understand it. I just thought that if you get good at something, you'll win. And there is a level of that is very true. And it hit me. I was doing a race that it was a circuit. So it was like a 2.5 mile circuit. And me and one other guy had left the pack. It was him or I were going to win this race. But early on in the race, I was paying attention to his weaknesses and I was paying attention to his strengths. And I was looking at when he would ride on the flats, he was really strong, and he would ride the climbs, he was really weak. And so I just kind of stored it away. I didn't really do anything about it. But on the bell lap, I cross the finish line, they ring the bell, my chain comes off of my bike. Oh. And at this point, I had already left him. I was ahead of him by probably about 100 yards. And my chain comes off, and I'm like panicking, trying to get the chain back on, and this guy passes me. And I'm still trying to fumble around, get my chain back on. And I heard this guy in the stand say, Michael, you got this. And so I did. I finally get it back on, and I get back on the bike, and I'm starting to go back hard again. And all that started coming back to me of what I remembered on his strengths and weaknesses. And in the flats where he was strong, I just maintained. But on those climbs, I buried myself. Mm-hmm. And about 100 yards to the finish line, I caught up to him. I put in a little bit of I'm going to pass him to see how he responds, but he responded. He got right on my wheel. And I was like, okay, I've got one match left. And I've got to save that to the finish line. And so we come around this corner, finish line is straight ahead of us. I drop my head, I bury myself, I gave it 150%. Cross the finish line, I look to my left, look to my right, he's not there. I threw my hands up, I won the race. But that's when I got the fact that you had to learn how to win.
Yeah.
Because I had the skill, but it's all the other things that help with winning. Right. Learning those little nuances that you talked about that just amplify the skill that you already have.
That's right, because when you get to the pro level, everyone's good. That's why we're all at the pro level. So what separates you?
Yeah.
Right? And it's the nuances there. What carried you? I mean, I know you've done a lot of races at this point, right? When did you sort of retire from that?
So I don't share a lot of this story, but I actually was crazy enough to do another bike ride across the United States. So I've
Oh,
done two.
wow. Wow. Okay.
The second one was a race, and I raced from Banff, Canada to Antelope Wells, New Mexico, basically the border of New Mexico and Mexico.
Wow.
It was all off-road on the Continental Divide. And that one I just did just for fun. I wanted to race it. And so there's about 200 people. It took me 23 days and I finished took me 28 days and I finished 23rd.
That's great.
But that was in 2018. And at that point I was like in my early 40s, I guess. You know, my body is already like, the more you train, you're not getting better. You know,
Yeah,
you're just
yeah.
like, you're seeing these young guys like, geez, this 20-year-old just like flew by me like I was standing still.
Right. It's a different world. Yeah.
It was. And I had one more race that I wanted to do. I wanted to race across Florida. And so I go down, I do this race, or I start this race, and it's on the Atlantic side, and it's a race to the Gulf.
Hmm.
And as fast and how you want to get there, it didn't matter. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this without sleeping. And at 32 hours into the race, I hadn't slept. I'm sitting 10th place. And I was like, this is dumb. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I was hallucinating a little bit. And I call a friend, and she comes and picks me up, picks my bike up. We go to a hotel. I sleep 6 hours. And I wake up and I go, this is dumb. I go back out. I finish the race.
Oh, man.
I finished 20th place. And I called it quits after that.
Wow.
And, you know, although I still, and even talking about cycling, I still had this hunger to be on the bike and to race. I do miss it, but I've probably been on the bike since that Florida race probably a dozen times.
What made you, and I don't like the word quit, so I'll
Yeah.
use the words retire. Is that
Yeah.
is that a better word? What made you feel that you had to retire?
You know, and I'm glad you say that, because it wasn't a quitting, it was a shifting.
Hmm.
I shifted from putting all my effort into cycling to now I want to put all my effort into entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
And I wanted to create a legacy. I felt like I created enormous things in the cycling world and things that most people would never do. Now I wanted to shift that into business and do the same, create a legacy, make a name for myself, and create a company or companies that could carry on when I'm not, when I'm dead and gone. So that's what I did. I hired a business coach shortly after that and really started putting my focus into my company, scaling it. But I took those lessons from my bike ride and I applied it to business. The giving up part, the resilience, the determination,
Right.
all of those things I apply on a day-to-day basis in business.
Right. It's the parallel mind that you need to be successful in both. It's
Totally.
the belief systems, it's the social dynamics, it's all the same.
Yeah.
You asked me what is one belief system that I had to drop to get to where I am today. I
Yeah.
want to ask you that question. What is one belief system that you had to get rid of in your life in order to succeed?
I had to get rid of the belief that grind was the only way. I had to bring in mindset and grind, and those work parallel with each other to create the success. You know, you have to do the hard work. You've got to do all the late nights and the early mornings, but also the mindset, the believing in yourself, the knowing that you can before you ever even attempt it. I had to couple all of that together. Whereas before it was just like go hard, push hard, grind, all of that, and success would come. It didn't really start happening until I brought the two together.
Now, could you attest some of that to just being younger and younger, more energy? Just, you know, you were told just get out there, get after it. But you're saying, well, you kind of have to actually know what you're doing too at the same time.
Yeah, totally. And not only know what you're doing, but there's a lot of people that they're one chapter ahead of you in the book.
Mm-hmm.
They've got that experience, and having coaches and having mentors are crucial if you want to create that big success like I want to create. And bringing those people on to decrease the learning curve.
That's exactly right. You know, Michael, I'm finding that what does differ from athletics to entrepreneurship is what you just said. It's the learning curve. And you can only ground and pound so much. Like when you're on a bike, you know, you get good enough and then there's only so much you can do because you're limited by actual physical capacity. Like sure. You can't defy the laws of gravity in physics. You can only do what you're capable of doing by human nature. So right. When you get into entrepreneurship, in a lot of ways, you can write your own rules. So you go from this sort of confinement, because you can't just get off your bike and fly, right? You have to actually do the work, to now it's like, well, wait a minute, I could just do this, or look at it this way, or bring in this person, and then it's done.
Yeah.
And that learning curve sometimes is super fast because you're also chasing this phantom of everyone has access to the same stuff. The internet is a hugely powerful thing at this point. So it goes back to the nuances of how you use it.
Yeah, totally. Well, you know, when I said earlier about my coach had mentioned you're going to have 5 times you want to quit, that really helped me when I did have those moments. I expected it. Mm-hmm. And so if you expect that you're going to have some failures, but you look at the opportunity of the failures, the opportunity of I don't feel like moving forward, and capitalize off of it, then it gives you the opportunity for success.
Yeah, failures really are lessons. I mean, if you let them be. Just like you have to learn how to win, you have to learn how to lose. And if you learn how to lose properly, you can really position yourself for an even better win the next time. Because the loss is going to come and you're going to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been reading this book lately, and it talks about failure and success. And he states in this book that there really is no such thing as failure, because you wouldn't understand what success is without failure. You can't measure success without having the opposite of that, of failure. Yep. So you have to have the two in order for success to happen. So his philosophy was there is no such thing as a failure. It's all success. You're just learning it as you go along.
Yeah, and of course, I think every athlete, entrepreneur has had a failure that really hurt. You started this episode with that, but it doesn't define you, and it doesn't mean that's the end of the story, right?
Sure.
I mean, Michael, just back to where you started with that hole, and you went on the journey to more or less sort of find yourself and say, hey, if I could do this, I can do anything. How did you come on the other side and reposition yourself to success?
Well, I knew from the bike trip that one of the first things I did was when I bought that ticket, that was the burn the ships for me. You know, there's no going back. And I wrote down and I made commitments of creating this legacy that I could not turn back. And I hired a coach. That was another thing on the cycling. I hired a coach. Did the same thing in business. I hired a coach. And I created the accountability. So I put the same things that I did in the cycling trip, I put those same things into business to keep me accountable. I mean, right now, I think I've got 3 different coaches that I work with in business, and all of them have their different things that they're working with me on, but there's accountability every week that I'm with them. I've got a new task to do, something else to do. So it was a very clear parallel of, in order to create success on that cycling trip, to get to the other side, I had to stick to a regimented way of doing things.
Right.
And so I've just followed that same thing with business.
And even though you know how to win, you know how to lose, you still have the coach for accountability, because how important is accountability to you and your success directly?
I think we get lazy without it. You know, and it's easy to. We've got life that gets in the way, we got family that gets in the way, and all legitimate stuff. You know, you just recently got married. You know,
Yes.
that's an easy thing to get in the way.
Yeah.
And although it was a marvelous thing, right? But at some point, you had to go back to the grind.
Yep.
Some point, you had to go, all right, babe, honeymoon's over. It's been awesome. Now it's time to go back to head down, get back after it. And if there wasn't something that you had in place, whether it was your own accountability or somebody else that's keeping you accountable, you drag. You get lazy. And I think that can be a natural tendency to get lazy if we don't have that accountability.
Well, lazy and complacency is, you're in a dead zone,
Yeah.
because you go there and you so quickly will fall very, very deep into it. Because you're right. It's very easy to say, hey, we're on a honeymoon. Hey, I love this pizza and pasta and all this free time. And, oh, well, here comes Monday.
Yeah.
Damn it. You know, it's okay. Well, so you could cry about it, or right when you come home from a trip, or okay, let's push the pace here. Let's get after it. And by the way, how can we enjoy the time to make it easier? Because it doesn't all have to be bad.
Right, of course. Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, I think it's really important to have that accountability. And you know how, like, when you're driving your car and you're going from point A to point B and you've driven that same route a million times, you shift into an autopilot. Like you show up at your house one day and you're like, I don't even remember how I got here, but I did.
Yep.
I think life is that way. And if you don't choose to step out of that autopilot, years will go by on autopilot where you've done the same thing every day with the same results and wonder, where has time gone and why I haven't gotten anything done about it. And so if having those things in place, that accountability, I feel like is just so important if you've got goals that are bigger than you.
And that's the thing. You need a goal that's bigger than you. I mean, we spoke about that too. You need something outside of yourself, because it's very easy. Hey, look, I'm doing well. I've made it. I'm good. I'm good. Well,
Yeah.
What if you had a company that depended on you, and employees, and not to mention your family, right? So those people rely on you.
Sure.
So it's not just about you anymore. And that's something you're experiencing now, right? I mean, talk to me about that and your current business today.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been easy for me from learning from that cycling trip to put accountability and all of those things in place. Now I've got a team that I've got to inspire and motivate, encourage,
Yep.
when they may not have that same mindset. They may be okay with the autopilot on a day-to-day basis, but I put little things in place to just push without them feeling pushed.
Right.
Or when we are pushed, it's like, all right, guys, it's time to push. And so I'm constantly encouraging them to think bigger than what they're currently thinking. And you quickly see the ones that are the 8 to 5ers, and you see the ones that are like, you know what, I want more. And my philosophy is, if they're willing to allow me to invest in them, then I know the return on that is they'll invest in me. They'll invest in the company.
Right.
And so that's what I put a lot of my attention to, is the ones who want that investment. I put my investment into that. You know, I spend time with them. And the ones who are just, you know, they're coming in to clock in and out, you know, not that they don't get my attention, but it's on a limited basis. And I really put a lot of effort into the ones who want that growth, who want that that accountability, and giving them access to my coaches that can help and encourage them and keep them accountable as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, being a leader it's a tough job, because you've got to get your tribe motivated sometimes when they don't want to, and then the motivation builds consistency and discipline and all the same stuff that we talk about. But it's not an easy job, because when you're the leader, who's doing it for you?
Right.
So it goes back to your roots. Well, I have to do it.
Yeah, sure. Well, and I think probably one of the biggest struggles, it wasn't super difficult for me to keep myself accountable, whether it was hire a coach or just my own accountability, but it was all still driven from that story that I don't want to be talking about, you know, that conversation of the ride home. Not everybody has that. And I've seen that in business where they don't think about the story when they're on their way home.
Yeah.
They don't think about, because they could just unplug from my company and plug into another company. And so really trying to draw out of them what they're made for. What purpose do they have in life? What is their why? And when you can start drawing that out of them, and then when they start seeing that happen, they get encouraged. They're motivated. They're inspired. And it's a really cool experience when you start duplicating yourself in others, and you start seeing their successes off of just comments or books or accountability that you've put in place for them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And this is all going into your book, I assume?
Yeah.
Yeah. When can we expect the book to be ready?
Well, I think we're on our 10th chapter right now of editing. I'm hoping by the first of the year that it will either be out, or at least be out digitally. It may not be hard copy yet, but that's the plan.
Excellent. And how's that process been? Are you writing it yourself?
No, I originally was writing it myself, and I was like, Michael, you suck at this.
We can't be good at everything, right?
Right. But you know what I was good at was telling my story.
Right.
And if I could tell my story, record it, then I could put that into a transcript, and I could give it to a ghostwriter or a book writer and go, now clean it up. And so that's what I've done, is I just took recordings of everything about my trip and put it into a transcript, send it off to him. He'll put it into the book words, you know, and then we'll get on a call every 2 weeks and we'll go through it. And I make little tweaks, or he may ask me, hey, you talked about this person, or you talked about that story. Can you go in deeper? Like, tell me a little bit more about that. And I'll literally get on as if I'm doing a podcast, and I'll record it and I'll send it over to him.
Now, is it just about pretty much the cycling story?
Yeah, so that's the
how
base.
How far up to the present time do you go?
Yeah, so the cycling took us through about 3/4 of the book, and now I'm into the present time, the running the business, the entrepreneurship. So it's it will end with from the beginning of a cycling trip all the way through to current.
Excellent, man. Yeah, well,
It's going to be good.
I'm going to need one when it comes out, and I'll make sure to share it too.
Absolutely. It'll be fun.
Last couple questions. You're doing, it's remodeling. Is it single family homes, or tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's all single family homes. Most of our remodels are all luxury level, kitchens, bath, basements, additions. We're dabbling some on new construction as well, but really just building a company that is based on relationships, not transaction.
So do you have the construction company, or are you buying the homes and remodeling?
No, so clients would come to us and go, hey, I want my kitchen remodeled.
Okay.
And they come to us, and we go out and meet them and talk about the possibilities and create a design, drawings, renderings, all of that stuff. It's a full service application to ultimately give a client their dream remodel, dream kitchen, or whatever it may be.
Oh, that's excellent. So then you go out to find the right people to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So I've got about 16 people on staff, all of them skilled in their various ways, from sales to production to design to marketing, all of those different areas. And, you know, they're all skilled at what they do. So every phase of the project, a new department is involved.
And what states are you doing it in right now?
Right now, just Georgia. My intention is I've just bought a second office, and we're remodeling that now. I'm going to be buying a third office soon and create this triangle around Atlanta or around a specific location. In our area, there's a lake that's very popular. And then my goal is to use that triangle and duplicate it in other states, and create, whether it's a franchise or me being the owner in those other states. But yeah, we want to be national.
Excellent, man. Well, if somebody listening is in Georgia, how could they find your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So Michael James Remodeling. And if you look up even Michael James, you'll be able to find us in some capacity or not. But Michael James Remodeling is the name of the company. And go online, fill out a form, and one of our team members will be in contact. My rule is they have to be in contact within 5 minutes. So we'll see how that works out.
Oh, wow. See, I like that. I like the hustle there. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as any other ways people could find you or contact you, where could they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the podcast, The Michael James Way, as well. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all of the major platforms the podcast is on. And then also, if there's any listeners that's got a great story, I'd love to have them on the podcast as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's excellent. Michael, it's always a great time talking to you. I hope someday soon we can meet in person, and I'd love to do this again in person.
Absolutely. Let's do it, brother. I would love to.
All right, brother. Well, thank you very much.